What's going on, guys? Johnny Bannon here with Trepa Technologies. We're going to be going over Network Plus domain 3.1 here, finishing up. Please feel free to like and subscribe, hit that bell, share it with your friends. Let's go ahead and get started. So we just, if you're watching this in order, we just went over the first half of domain 3.1, and now we're going to get into the objectives over here on the right: lifecycle management, change management, and configuration management. So the first thing we're going to talk about is lifecycle management. Two key terms here that you're going to, if you worked for any amount of time in IT, you've heard of end of life, end of support. Very important, because if we've ever been in an IT and especially in an OT environment, a lot of times things become end of life, end of support, and it may be on our team because the organization may not want to spend the money to upgrade, and we have to put in compensating controls for it. But beyond that, just some personal experience there. Beyond that, it's important that we differentiate and define these two terms. So end of life. End of life is the point at which a product is no longer manufactured or sold. So this is, hey, as Cisco, we're no longer going to sell you directly Catalyst 3800 series switches. Now, if a VAR, a Very Rights Authorized Reseller, or a hardware reseller sells it to you, that's on them. But we're no longer manufacturing. Our factories are not producing any more of this Catalyst switch. That is end of life. And that's all it means, okay? So when you hear something as EOL, that should tell you, okay, that doesn't necessarily mean that the vendor's not going to give out patches or technical support. That just means I can't procure it from the prime vendor anymore, okay? But what that should tell you as a senior network engineer is I better start getting my presentations ready to go to the CFO and the finance meeting for quarter 3 to start talking about we need to get upgrades soon, because eventually what's coming next after EOL? End of support. So end of support refers to the point when the vendor no longer provides anything for that product. Meaning, hey, you cannot put in a Cisco TAC case for this Catalyst switch anymore because we got no developers working on patches. If some sort of CVE comes out that makes it vulnerable, tough luck. No longer any patches for anything that breaks. No security updates for that product. This is a stage that's more critical than EOL because you're just unsupported anymore. And now it leaves you and your organization in a very risky place, right? And depending on the risk appetite of that organization, you may have to deal with it. Or it's time to spend some money to upgrade our end of support devices. Now, most enterprises that are tech focused, or at least care about the tech side, and they care about their IT infrastructure being updated and the best and whatever, at the EOL stage is when we start doing lifecycle replacement, right? Hey, we're approaching EOL. We've alerted the stakeholders, the people that makes the money move in the organization, and now we're going to upgrade before EOL, or we're going to upgrade after we hit EOL before we hit EOS. And if we hit EOS, you're pretty much just out of luck when it comes to any support. That's the main difference between the two. EOL is no longer sold by the prime vendor. EOS means the vendor is no longer getting any support for it, okay? Software management. So managing software across the network environment includes patching, updates, patch management. Just pretty much how do we keep up to date with the software across our enterprise, okay? So one thing that's important is our patch management system. Now, typically as a network engineer, this is not going to be our primary role as for the enterprise. Usually sysadmins alongside a security team, like working with a SOC, cyber analyst, whatever the title is, or a security team, is going to be tracking when things need to be patched as far as like server systems go. Now, as a network team, what are we worried about? We're worried about our network infrastructure, access points, switches, firewalls, and our routers, load balancers if we have them, things like that. Also, our network resources maybe that live in the cloud too, right? We have to make sure we're on top of our patches there. And when we apply patches, guys, because I like to bring real world into it, don't just apply the patch right away to production. If you can have it, having a test environment, a staging environment is the best way to do it. That's because when a patch comes out from the vendor, yes, they did their own testing, but you don't know if you apply that patch, what it could break downstream, right? Especially like operating systems, which again, as a network engineer, we're not upgrading Ubuntu desktops, more than likely. But there could be third-party apps, there could be other things integrated in that a new patch may break. So it's important that if a new patch comes out, have some sort of system that says, okay, we'll apply this in 30, 45, or 60 days, depending on the criticality of it, after we do testing, right? And maybe that's our timeline. New patch came out, give ourselves 30 days, let's test it, let's stage it, let's have some sort of process, change management process we're about to get to in integrating this patch. Operating systems. So managing operating systems across network devices to make sure they're up to date. So overall, just OS upgrades can help make sure that we're still secure, and that if there's any bugs or patches, maybe just an OS upgrade fixes all that, or an OS update. Doesn't always have to be a complete upgrade. Now, you may say, okay, as a network engineer, this is simple. We're not managing 1,000 Windows desktops. True, but in a multi-vendor environment in big enterprise, we may have Cisco switches, Juniper switches, Palo Alto firewalls, F5 load balancers, Cisco ASR, ISR routers, and maybe a couple of Juniper routers or a Fortinet firewall over here in this site. We may be one of those non-homogeneous enterprises, and now it gets really tricky making sure all those operating systems are up to date. Not even to include, let's say we have to do a big upgrade to like a AAA server like Identity Services Engine. Well, we're going to make sure that we have some downtime when doing that operating system update or upgrade to that, right? Let's say it's like some sort of email service. Big deal in enterprises, right? If email goes down, we making no money, right? Phone services too. If, like, let's say we work for an automotive company where sales are done on the phone, or anywhere where sales are done on the phone. If you're running like Cisco Call Manager, still kind of that like old school way of doing collaborative technologies, not just old Microsoft Teams. Well, we got to do an OS upgrade. There's going to be a lot of planning and a lot of ASIs or maintenance windows put in, okay? And then, of course, our firmware updates as well. Decommissioning. So decommissioning refers to the process of safely removing IT assets that are no longer required or have reached their end of life. This goes into not just us as network engineers saying, hey, get rid of that switch, just throw it in the dumpster. No, we're probably going to have some sort of policy set in place that says, how do we dispose of this securely so that we don't have any data leakage? But also there may be regulations that we need to be compliant with. Like maybe we can't just throw a switch in a dumpster because some sort of environmental regulation, right? So decommissioning should be a process as well. It's not just simple as throwing it away or hitting it with a hammer. And that could be part of the decommissioning process. But this could include like, data migration, secure data destruction, hardware recycling, okay? All right, change management, something that's very important. Something that network cowboys like myself do not like. Just kidding, right? But change management is a systematic approach to dealing with changes within the production environment. So, we need to make a change to an ACL. It may be something as simple, and it's simple. Let me script this out. I'll do this in VS Code first. Take my old ACL, put the new line in, and just apply that thing. We should be good. No, that's not how it works. Any change that's done on production has to be approved. Not only for your sake, but for the company's sake as well, right? You want that approval because you want your change to go to management, to go to the senior principal network architect, and they say, yes, we saw your pull request, your merge request, your change request, no matter where you're sitting, if you're doing network automation, pull requests, CI/CD pipelines. Anyways, you want that to be blessed off by management, to be blessed off by the senior, so that if when you apply that change, if something does break, you have the proper paperwork to protect yourself. But not only that, you do not want to be the reason something breaks. So part of change management is coming to a change management meeting, a proposal, however your organization does it, setting your proposal up, getting it peer reviewed, putting in the maintenance window for it, applying that change, having a back out and rollback plan for that, and a nice system to iteratively upgrade or make changes in a safe way that keeps business online and keeps your network online, okay? So request process tracking, service requests. In change management, the request process tracking is essential for documenting and tracking all changes within the network. A service request refers to the formal request from a user or department for a service or change within the network. Okay, configuration management. So production configuration. This is the running config. This is a Network Plus exam course. This is all about networking. So this is the running configuration. This is what's currently going on in production for all your network hardware and services, whether that be a switch, router, firewall, AAA server, call manager, whatever network infrastructure is currently running, that's your production configuration. And any change to production environment must follow your change management procedures, right? And backup configuration. So the backup configuration is just the backup to that running currently good config. So before we go make a change, we probably will back up our configs to some sort of centralized shared drive, maybe in some source control management system like GitHub or GitLab that says, hey, this is our rollback. If we make this change to a router, it messes things up, we can roll back to this known good, last known good configuration, what we call the backup configuration. Then our baseline or golden configuration. Let's say we have some sort of zero-touch provisioning going on. We may have a golden baseline configuration that we apply to all of our switches that we put on the switch, and then we go deploy that switch on site. It runs through its zero-touch provisioning process. So the baseline or golden configuration is a template of the ideal or standard configuration for network devices and systems. We hear this golden configuration a lot with software-defined networking, right? Where maybe we're running a Catalyst Center, which used to be called DNAC, DNA Center, and that golden config is something that it's like, hey, this is what my fabric underlay should always look like, right? All right, now let's go do our quiz. All right, so let's go to our LMS here. We'll go to Network Plus. We'll come to our lessons. We'll go to domain 3.1.2, and let's go ahead and take our domain quiz. We'll zoom in here. So question 1, what is the purpose of a baseline / golden configuration and network configuration management? So there's the baseline / golden configuration. Let's see here. I am going to go with D, to act as a reference for troubleshooting and maintaining consistency. And there's our explanation there if we need it. Question 2, which of the following is the most critical reason to replace an IT asset before it reaches end of support? So I'm going to go with A here because we won't get anything from the vendor after that. Question 3, why is having a backup configuration important in configuration management? So I'm going to go with B here. It allows organizations to revert to a known good state in case of a system failure. Question 4, which of the following is not a key component of software management in an IT environment? Software management. So I think this one is kind of a tricky question, but I believe it's C, decommissioning unused hardware. Because although that may be part of what we do, we may have to decommission hardware, but it's saying unused. I think it's just trying to get you on the English comprehension, like, oh, it's software management. It's decommissioning no longer supported devices, right? So decommissioning unused hardware. Yeah, decommissioning is a separate process, not directly part of software management. So just trying to get you on the way CompTIA looks at things, right? Which is true. I mean, decommissioning is not a part of, like, a software team wouldn't be like, hey, we're software developers, we got to decommission this network switch, right? So I kind of get it. All right, question 5. Which of the following best describes end-of-life EOL and IT asset management? So I'm going to go with A here. The assets no longer manufactured or sold, but still may have some technical support from the vendor. Now, honestly, guys, depending on what you look up on Google, sometimes some definitions will say EOL means no longer supported either. CompTIA, they separate the two, EOL, EOS, right? And in most organizations I've been in, when we hear end of life, that pretty much to me just means we got to replace it. We didn't get into the nitty gritty of like, oh, well, it's end of life, but Cisco may still support us for 2 years. I guess we would say that in the meetings. We wouldn't be like, but the end of support date's exactly this. But you get into the nitty gritty, that is how it is. EOL just means it's no longer sold, but then they'll usually give a date, but we're going to give support for it till this date. And sometimes vendors push it back depending on the customer, right? Or depending on how many customers like, hey, we're still using this. All right, question 6. What is the primary purpose of change management in an IT environment? So I'm going to go with B, to track and control changes in a way that minimizes risk and disruption. And let's go. We got 100%, baby. All right, guys. So thank you for watching this video. Make sure you like and subscribe. Hit that bell so you can get notified when we post new videos. Share this with your friends. If you want to get access to our LMS, hit that link in the description below to purchase. Reach out to our team, and I'll see you in the next video.